Well, thank you for this opportunity to share with you about our center. As you can tell, our center is located in the Mid-Atlantic area of the United States. It's affiliated with the College of Education at the University of South Carolina. So I'm the Eurydice Bauer and the director of Bilingualism Matters, but to be honest, Bilingualism Matters run because we have some excellent other people that makes it work. So we have two co-directors, as Tanya mentioned. One is Dr. Lenny, the other is Dr. Yang Wang. But we also have, and I think she's here today, Kunjin Wang, who's a advanced graduate student, doctoral student, who handles the day-to-day things. And we've had the pleasure of working with her for 2 years. She has to graduate in December. We're thinking of ways to make her fail so we can keep her. No, just kidding. But it's been wonderful having her for 2 years. And we wish her best. She will be very hard to replace. To give you a sense of the state, across the state, we have some different language programs. So we have world language programs that are in operation where students are exposed to a language for a very limited amount of time per week, but there's at least exposure in that fashion. We have dual language programs where students are two different first language groups are put together and they are learning a target language. And then we also have ESL programs where students who aren't in dual language programs may participate in those programs. We have a website at Wild Apricot, and we have a lot more information there, and we encourage you to visit the website. Next slide. Yeah. So our center was launched, as you can see, in 2019. And one of the things we wanted to do is to be focused on agreed upon goals. And so our executive board worked on outlining our collective mission. And we see our mission as having 3 complementary goals. So first, we want to be a site for the region where people can meet, support, and engage in ongoing dialogue about bilingualism and multilingualism. To provide really that space for our constituents, we alternate between hosting a conference and hosting a speaker series that brings individuals together to discuss what we know about bilingualism, as well as how to promote and sustain it. And I'll give you an example of one of those speaker series in a minute. In addition, we see our mission as being a resource for our local communities and stakeholders. We've embarked on numerous activities that cater to the needs of the local communities. So some activities have involved, for example, having multilingual read-alouds that highlight different languages such as German, French, Spanish, Mandarin in the local libraries. And on a Saturday morning, for example, where parents and children can come together. We also have conducted activities where we also collected data that explore things such as how parents support young emergent bilingual students when they may or may not speak the target language themselves. So it's an issue that parents raise all the time, but in terms of us researching and figuring out solutions to that, we decided to take that on as part of one of our projects. We are now in the process of exploring how we could support literacies in the Latinx families. We have a growing Latinx family group in South Carolina. And this project actually is a collaboration between our center, the local library, as well as the Greater Columbia Community Relations Council. And the Relations Council is one that's been in existence since the 60s. And its major goal is to support families in need in the community. So it's a really good community alliance. The difference is that they really historically have not looked at language as an avenue of uplifting individuals. And so we bring that to the dialogue in terms of saying, well, maybe you should consider literacy literacy and bilingualism, multilingualism as a goal for the organization. So the third mission is that we seek to work with district leaders, educators, and families. Well, some of our activities that we conduct under our second mission overlaps with this. So the distinction here is that the focus is on how we initiate and sustain working relationships with those who educate our students. For example, Tanya Rinke, for example, had an opportunity to see this in action when she came to visit South Carolina we planned for the fall conference. As part of that process, we visited a German English program. And during that conversation and visiting the school, we learned that the German English program will no longer be accepting students at the kindergarten level to feed into the ongoing process. And as we pursued this conversation some more, we found the primary reason was just because they couldn't find the teachers they needed. And so in that moment, Tanya said, well, wait a minute, I prepare teachers who teach German. And so then this is the way we tend to, I think, operate in terms of looking at what are the local needs of the teachers, the educators, where do we step into that conversation? How can we create a dialogue that we can sustain over time? Next slide. Lenny is the slide person. As you recall, I mentioned the fact that we alternate between conference and having a presenter come to our campus. And I know that Erica Hoff was attending some of the sessions, and I don't know if she's still here or not, but I definitely want to give a shout out to her. She was here this past spring. She did an exceptional job, honestly. And what she did that was exceptional is that she was able to take important studies and have the content be accessible for graduate students who were there, who had questions, parents who were there, who had questions, and teachers who were there. In fact, her talk, to our surprise, attracted over 60 attendees across the face-to-face session and the online platform. We weren't surprised that she could attract those individuals. We were just surprised that teachers would get together in their libraries as groups and actually feed into this. And some of them actually took the risk of asking some questions at the end to her as well, to better understand their local situation. So this is a situation where we hope to keep the dialogue moving forward. So the next step for us is to think about how do we build on what has started with this conversation and where we go from here. Another way we are reaching out to educators and impacting their instruction is through our new multilingual library. So this library is to support teachers to use authentic literature as part of their teaching. One of the things that we've learned from the teachers is the fact that often they don't have materials. They have to create materials on their own. They don't have always the books that they need. And so by having this available for them, it just simply makes their lives easier. So our library has literature and some teaching materials in German, French, Spanish, and Mandarin they can access and borrow. But we also want to do research around this in terms of looking at what does instruction look like before teachers started to use some of these type of materials? How are they approaching using these kinds of materials? What do we know about good instruction in multilingual contexts? How can we support teachers in terms of professional development along those lines? So there are many different kinds of questions we can pose just by virtue of having this facility under our control. Tanya mentioned that we will be hosting the upcoming conference, and we will have lots for all of you to enjoy, and we're hoping everyone will contribute by submitting your wonderful work to the conference, but I'm going to let Dr. Sanchez give you a little bit more about the conference.
Well, thanks, Yuri, for sharing about those initiatives, but I do want to take a moment just to say a huge thanks to Yuri for her vision and efforts, to get many of these initiatives off the ground, in these first few years of our center. So as we all know, with organizational work, commitment's unending, so definitely appreciate the leadership that Yuri's been providing. But on that note of commitment, our center is thrilled to share in the commitment of hosting the annual conference for the Bilingualism Matters Network this fall in October. So we definitely hope to see many of you in person at the conference, and want to say a huge thanks to the planning committee for all the things that they're planning. And so there's a wonderful lineup of keynote speakers, which I know you may have heard about already from Tanya earlier in the day. That includes Dr. Tanone, Dr. Senzi Moreno, and of course our very own right here, Dr. Eurydice Bauer. And so, but together addressing such diverse ways of thinking about issues that at the end of the day are connected in terms of thinking about improving the livelihood and life opportunities, right, for individuals who are bilingual. And so we have a wonderful lineup of experts that we know we're going to learn from, but as we would say in English, that's the tip of the iceberg. We certainly hope that we see a lot of replication of the conversations that have happened throughout today's knowledge exchange as well, because they're pointing out such important issues that we need to continue talking about together. And so we hope that you can join. If it's virtually, we understand, but there are sentiments that were echoed earlier today that talked about the value of meeting together in person and how vital that is. And so we hope that becomes possible for those of you that are able to come out in South Carolina. One of the goals I think the planning committee is keeping in mind is this is more than just a conference. And so one of the ways that this is more than just a conference, as Yuri was talking about, we have different opportunities to enter into language instruction classes. And so this is just an example of a profile of one district next to us of the different dual language immersion programs that they have. So we'd be happy to organize and offer school tours, for example, if that might be of interest to you. But also we know that the planning committee is putting together opportunities to create further dialogue. I think this goes in alignment with what Monica was sharing about opportunities for centers to get together and talk about center work or create shared work, but also just for putting people together in dialogue groups who have like-minded interests as well, whether or not that's affiliated with the center. So we know that the planning committee is offering opportunities like that to make it more than just a conference for you as well, and why meeting in person would be so helpful. But since we are the ones who are able to host, we wanted to make sure that you had a warm welcome to the area of South Carolina. And so if you're not familiar with South Carolina, in October, it's going to feel wonderful here. The temperatures we know you will greatly enjoy. And so it's worth building in extra time to travel. So we just wanted to let you know that there are so many destinations in our state that would be wonderful for you to take advantage of. One of the most popular ones, of course, is Charleston. So in 2016, this is like an odd fact for me to even still really believe, but Charleston was voted as the #1 destination in the world. And so it's really interesting, but when my family and I moved to South Carolina a few years ago, we spent a week at Charleston. It became one of our favorite family trips. And we know that there's more to explore beyond even the week that we were there, but we have lots of beaches within 2 hours of Columbia. In Charleston, it has lots of historical landmarks as well, architectural histories, very famous French quarters. So if you like the beaches, we encourage you to come check out South Carolina beaches, but also, just an hour north of us, hour and a half, are the mountains. We're right at the foothills of the Blue Ridge. So if you don't like beaches, but you like mountains, we want you to know that you can spend some time exploring the mountains as well, especially as the fall colors start to settle in. So our point is to let you know that we want to see you in person. We'd love to have you here, but we hope you build in some time to also be able to just rest and rejuvenate through this conference in some of the beautiful areas of the state. And then while you're in Columbia, you know, there's a high chance that many of you have never been to our city of Columbia, South Carolina, and you might wonder, well, what is there to do? Well, there's quite a bit. One point of destination we thought might be of interest to you is the Anne Frank House, which was just opened at the university with like 1 or 2 years ago, very new, but it's the only center house in all of North America that's partnered with the Anne Frank House in Amsterdam. And so we certainly would be glad to organize a tour for you to come see the center here. We have a state museum, we have a children's museum, we have a state house. You can take a walking tour inside the state house, lots of hiking trails, and lots of fun little places to visit, like the candy store that you see in the corner there. So again, we just wanted to take a chance while we're sharing about our center to let you know our center welcomes you here. And if there's anything we can do to help you to know about the city or the state to help you with any accommodations in your travels here, definitely let us know. We'd be glad to accommodate the best we can. So we want you to know there's a warm extension for you here.